Good morning, Amp Unit. I know BC said he probably wasn't going to talk to you guys until next year, and here we are 24 hours after the Raw review, talking more pro wrestling. Unfortunately, this is not a lighthearted topic. It's nothing we can have fun with. It's a little bit more sad, actually, and it's a story that came across my eyes around my 7 a.m. coffee this morning. And it was the wife of Brodie Lee, Jon Huber, who felt like she had to issue a response to a quote-unquote journalist that was questioning how Brodie passed. And it affected Brodie's wife so much that she left a multi-paragraph response to this journalist. And I use that word lightly because I think most pro wrestling journalists are just full of shit. And the fact that Brodie's wife, just hours, days after she loses her husband, she has to deal with this bullshit because the answers that Brodie's wife are giving out, what she is willing to release this soon after her husband passes, is not good enough for this journalist. He wants answers and he wants them now. How insensitive can one person be? That's what passes as journalism these days. These are the quote-unquote tough questions. And if you ask these journalists, they would say if they don't ask them, then who's going to? That's what makes their job so difficult. Dude, cut the shit. You don't deserve any more answers than what that family is willing to give you. When the time is right, after everything is processed, maybe you will get more answers. Maybe you won't. If you don't, tough shit, deal with it. Are you a part of his immediate family, Mr. Bruce Mitchell? If not, shut it. Now, I don't know much about this Mitchell guy. I had to do a little bit of research. I know how Jim Cornette feels about him. I'll actually play that audio in just a few minutes, actually, because that'll give you a little bit of insight on the character of this dude. But I don't know him, so I'm not going to kick somebody while they're down. I just know that I did come across the actual article that was written by Mitchell, just so I didn't get words twisted. Just so I didn't come off as somebody who didn't even read the article, but I'm just going to kick somebody while they're down. No, I want to read it for full transparency so I can critique it the best way possible, like only the amplified man can. So I can be the journalist, Mr. Mitchell, and critique your work in the decision to put out the information, the article that you put out. Now the shoe is on the other foot. There is actually drama just days after Brodie passes is what really infuriates me, frustrates me to no end. The fact that we can't just let Amanda process this and put out information on her time, whatever she wants to release, but some jackass who calls himself a journalist demands answers now, or it's a cover-up. And I'll give you his exact words, man. I have the actual article because I do my due diligence and I want to read it word for word for transparency so that I am critiquing it the right way. So I'm not making any mistakes in what I conclude from his words. But the fact that there's drama, man, the old adage of rest in peace, I guess is no longer, it no longer applies today. We say rest in peace and then we demand answers from the family or there's a cover-up. In the process, we create drama for no reason. You can't just give it some time, dude. Anyway, here's the article. You guys decide, man. You be the judge on how you feel about this. If this was fully an okay article to write right now, and everybody's blowing it out of proportion, or is this just insensitive? Could he have at least waited? Should words have been changed? Should he just not have written it? You be the judge, you be the jury on this. It's your own opinion, it's your own decision on how you feel about it. But this is the actual article. Brodie Lee and Cody Rhodes then brutally re-established the worn-out old strap match gimmick and overcame the handicaps of the Co-19 era placed on professional wrestling matches, literally knocking out one of the best matches of the year. Brodie Lee was right there, ready to grow with AEW into one of pro wrestling's very top stars, taking his on-air stooges in the Dark Order with him. Then he just disappeared. AEW and WWE had already been compromising pandem health standards by gathering in Florida to have events. It's no secret that both companies, WWE in particular, have not been transparent as to the consequences to the people involved of even putting on these shows. They both continue to run even when bigger money, more popular cultural entities like the NFL, the NCAA, the NBA, and Major League Baseball stopped, then cut back on events. The decision to do this didn't just put the independent contractors and their families at risk, but strengthened the pandemic itself by compromising social distancing, thereby strengthening the virus, putting everybody, everywhere, at more risk of getting sick. It's also evident to anyone who knows professional wrestling history that companies have long covered up the health risks involved in the lifestyles and standards the business often requires. Look no further than how WWE reacted in the wake of the Chris Benoit situation for a strong, irresponsible example. Wrestlers and wrestler families who wanted to stay employed in the business also participated in these compromises in exchange for employment or even the possibility of future employment. The head of the table isn't just a storyline. Then Brodie Lee disappeared. Understandably, in the Co-19 era, the silence surrounding his absence led many, myself included, wondering whether he had contracted the virus. AEW and Lee's family kept a very tight lid on what was going on with him and how serious Lee's medical situation actually was. It turned out so serious that he was being treated at the Mayo Clinic for it. With his passing, Brodie Lee's wife issued a statement noting the enormous support his family had received from AEW and the doctors at the clinic during his illness. She stated that her husband had died after a hard-fought battle with a non-co-related lung issue. That leaves the issue, though, of why Brodie Lee, his family, and AEW kept such a tight lid on information during his illness. People who have had COVID-19 have gotten lung damage that remained after the virus had left their system, and they then tested negatively for it. Could this be what Lee's wife meant? That he had already recovered from a bout with COVID-19 and then was suffering from the lung issue? Why would the family and AEW stay so quiet about what was going on if it was not COVID-19 related at all? Mitchell goes on to say, our country as a whole has not effectively worked together to lower the odds of the pandemic growing, and now we're in the midst of a surge that has made COVID-19 more dangerous than before. And he goes on to basically insinuate that there is a big possibility that this was a huge cover-up from AEW and Lee's wife, and that somehow they're working together, maybe in exchange for money or possible employment. You want to talk insensitive? Man, that's just unacceptable. You know, you want to write a story asking questions like, why would the family, this is a quote, why would the family in AEW stay so quiet about what was going on if it was not COVID-19 related at all? Maybe because it's none of your fucking business. It's nobody's business, especially 24, 48, 72 hours, 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years after. Let people grieve and process, especially his family and his employers. But here comes Mr. Journalist, man, and you want all the answers now. If it's not what is it? And if you don't tell us, then it must be a cover-up. It's a conspiracy. This is what journalism has come to today, and it's pathetic, especially professional wrestling journalism, where top news stories start off like this. Vince McMahon furious at such and such. How do you know Vince McMahon is furious? This guy literally keeps a tight lid on everything. Nobody gets in this dude's office unless you have a scheduled time 9 hours in advance. But somehow we always hear of leaked Vince McMahon is furious stories. Heat on Bruce Pritchard. AEW already in the doghouse. Says who? Where is the facts? Is this just another Melty Boy story? A Bruce Mitchell story? And people will be right there to eat into it, to feed into it. They'll click on it because they want to believe this shit. This is what wrestling journalism is. Nobody has facts. It's what they think is going on backstage. It's some conspiracy theory that's popped up in their dome piece. They didn't issue an exact statement, therefore it must be co-related. Anyway, that's my side rant. That was my first thought. The timing couldn't have been worse, and the questions that this Mitchell guy is asking is just none of his business. As a fan, as a passerby, as a journalist, as an extended family member. If Amanda and the parents of Brodie or anybody close in his family does not want to tell you, I don't care if you're a fourth cousin, if they don't want to tell you, his immediate family, then you ain't gonna know until it's your time to know, if ever. But this dude couldn't give this family a couple of days to just settle and see what they want the public to know. Anyway, that was my first thought. Professional wrestling talent Chris Hero responded to this article. And Chris Hero said, and I quote, "Bruce Mitchell, I hope one day you look back on yourself with extreme disappointment and gross embarrassment. You don't know a fraction of what you think you know, and your speculation is heartless. Do better." So that was Chris Hero sending a harsh response to Bruce Mitchell. I don't do much on social media, you guys know that, but that's probably something I would have said over to Bruce Mitchell. You know, I'm not going to kick somebody when they're down, but if you're going to call yourself a journalist, you better do proper journalism. This is not journalism. This is leading to conspiracy theories. Even if Bruce Mitchell was to be correct, and this was correlated, who are you, dude, 24 hours after this thing hits the news cycle, who are you to start asking why the family isn't releasing certain information? Because it's just none of your business. Because you want to slap the title of journalism after your name or journalist doesn't give you any priority to know information over the family. That's what upsets me, and I'm sure people like Chris Hero, and this is kind of a new story that's kind of circulating, but I'm pretty sure most of us would feel the same way if it was your family member or somebody you loved, man, and some journalist is trying to pry into what it could have been. And if you don't give any information, then it must be this, or you're hiding something. And for this dude to insinuate that AEW is conspiring with the family, or that Amanda, John's wife, is in cahoots with AEW so they don't look bad, and in exchange, they're going to get employment and money and be set for life. I mean, this is what this guy is not just insinuating, but he said in this article. Now, the aftermath of this article, this journalistic bullshit, whatever you want to call it, the aftermath was obviously Bruce Mitchell being canned by this PW Torch. In fact, PW Torch released this statement. Yesterday on pwtorch.com, senior columnist Bruce Mitchell published an editorial concerning the death of Jon Huber, aka Brodie Lee, Luke Harper, that did not go through the normal vetting and editing process for Mitchell's columns in general, and especially for such a sensitive topic. I was not given the opportunity to see the column before it was published. Out of deference to Bruce's 30 years as a staff writer, I chose not to immediately remove or edit the column as I assessed the situation, which included a discussion with him. Based on that conversation and additional reporting, I decided that the column does not meet our standards for publication. The piece has been removed from the site. And then, not too long after, PW Torch released this statement. Bruce Mitchell is no longer a staff member of Pro Wrestling Torch. I spoke with him earlier today and let him know my decision as well as the reasons behind it. I thank him for over 30 years of contributions that helped shape and grow Pro Wrestling Torch. Bruce informed and entertained readers and listeners with sharp, hard-hitting, informed columns and podcasts. In addition, he has been a dear friend outside of the professional realm. I wish him well. I also apologize to the Harper family for any pain the column has caused. Now, the troubling part is how Bruce Mitchell responded to this constructive criticism when people tried to tell him, hey, this was not the best timing. You could have worded many things different as a quote-unquote journalist. Maybe a little bit of an apology, right? That's not even just because, it's a soft generation. You have to apologize for everything these days, which there is a lot of truth to. But this is something that you really should apologize for. A public apology to the family, at least. But no, Bruce Mitchell actually said, I stand, this is a quote by Bruce from his firing from PW Torch. Bruce Mitchell says this, I stand by every word in the column and I stand by my decision to post it when and how I did. That's what's troubling. And then he also says, let me find this. He says, this is a quote, if you think I was disrespectful to the family, I challenge you to specifically quote my words to show me where. No one did. How did you disrespect the family? You have a whole paragraph right here that says it's also evident to anyone who knows professional wrestling history that companies have long covered up the health risks involved in the lifestyles and standards the business often requires. Wrestlers and wrestler families who wanted to stay employed in the business also participated in these compromises in exchange for employment or even the possibility of future employment. And then, 2 paragraphs later, you literally ask the question, why would the family, this is a quote, why would the family and AEW stay so quiet about what was going on if it was non-COVID-19 related at all? That is an outright ridiculous insinuation. Whether it comes out to be true a year from now or not is not even the point. The fact that when Amanda came out and said, we want to keep this private, but just so everybody knows, because I know it's a big deal right now in the world, it is not COVID-19 related. I will let you guys know that information. And for you, just 24 hours later, to bring up how past situations families have worked with the companies in exchange for money or future employment, and then you insinuate that there's a strong possibility AEW and Lee's family are doing such. How is that not insulting a day after this woman just lost her husband? How does Bruce Mitchell not understand that is beyond insulting? And he says the words, if you think I was disrespectful to the family, I challenge you specifically quote my words to show me. I just quoted your words, and that is how it's disrespectful to the family. You have just insinuated that There's a possibility they're working with AEW to cover this up. Even if you were to be right, bro, that's fucked up to do a day after this information goes out to the world that this dude is no longer with us. Or a couple days later, whatever it is. I just... And for you to double down on it, not even take any responsibility that, hey, maybe I could have worded some stuff different here. Maybe I could have waited a little bit, got some more info. Maybe a week from now, Amanda will release some statements that could take away any conspiracies that I have. No, Bruce Mitchell doubled down immediately, and he said, I stand by my decision to post it when and how I did it. Bro, that's beyond disrespectful. And I hate kicking anybody when they're down. I will never do that if it's unwarranted or if they're being kicked too much. But if you're going to double down, I mean, you have to take constructive criticism. And know when you done fucked up and just change it for the future. Maybe you would still have a job at PW Torch. Who knows? Bruce Mitchell says, I've said everything I have to say about this for the time being. If you're coming here to insult me now or to repeat the disingenuous rewriting of what I wrote, you'll be wasting your time because I won't be reading. If you took the time to support what I wrote, thank you. End, capital letters. Well, Ant-Man is not rewriting anything that you said. I'm quoting you, and this is pretty disingenuous. This is pretty disrespectful. This is pretty fucking stupid of a journalist. You want to ask the hard-hitting questions. Bro, you don't have to insinuate that the family is working with AEW to cover up Jon's passing. Jon has earned more respect than that. There's the term rest in peace, right? Let the dude rest in peace, man. You know, you're going to circulate conspiracy theories and drama a day or two after this dude passed. I can just hope that when Bruce Mitchell passes one day, that there's not conspiracy theories and drama, and that people aren't writing articles that his family might be conspiring to undermine what really happened, to cover it up. You know, I hope Bruce Mitchell never has to go through something like that, and some idiot is writing about his passing. I don't know, man. I don't know Bruce Mitchell, so I can't comment on the dude that he is. I know somebody that I actually respect in the business is a gentleman by the name of Jim Cornette. He just tells you how it is, even if his opinions are fucking stupid as shit. He'll tell you how he feels about you. And this is what Jim Cornette had to say about Bruce Mitchell. This was from just a few years ago, 2 or 3 years ago maybe. I stumbled across this. And this is what Cornette thinks about this Mitchell character.
Bruce Mitchell has never approached me in the last 20 years. Even if he's in the same place as I am, I never see him. He hides from me because he knows. For one thing, he's a gutless prick. For another thing, he knows that I am mad at him for good reason, because we had been friends and acquaintances and people that would speak to each other kindly. And then behind my back, he started knocking me and lying about me. And I never forgive that, because Sean Oliver and I had a philosophical disagreement, and we made up over that. But when somebody knocks me and lies to me, especially somebody that has allegedly been my friend and that I've been nice to, I never forget and I never forgive. And Bruce Mitchell is one of the, that Wade Keller's fucking bunch that thinks that they know a lot about the wrestling business. And he's also a gutless prick, if I mentioned that. And I will never forgive him for things he said behind my back, hiding behind a typewriter, that weren't true and that were inflammatory. And fuck Bruce Mitchell, and fuck anybody that likes Bruce Mitchell. And I hope he dies a horrible death in front of his family. Otherwise than that, I'm sure we could someday coexist. No,
randomly,
fuck Bruce Mitchell. He's a fucking prick. He's a liar. He's a piece of shit. He associates with Wade Keller, who was a liar and a piece of shit, an admitted liar. And they made things up about me to sell their newsletters that I wipe my ass with, and they don't exist in my world. And no, we're not going to ever make up any time in my lifetime.
I know somebody that works for the Torch, and I guess he doesn't actually work there because they don't exist. So that means he's just a school teacher then.
Well, no, Wade Keller has a bunch of fucking assholes that he's pumped up and convinced that they know a lot about the wrestling business, and his panel of experts. Wade Keller's been a liar for 20 years. He makes shit up and admitted same to Dave Meltzer one time, because I asked Meltzer, I said, why is Wade Keller writing all this shit that's untrue when all he would have to do is call me? Because at one time we had a relationship also until he started this bullshit. And I would let him know what the real story was, and then he could make his own decision, but he just makes shit up. And Dave said he asked him the same question, and Wade wasn't concerned that it was untrue. And, and he fosters this atmosphere with people that work for him. I don't know if he pays them, but that work for him, like this fucking asshole Sean Radican that wrote a bunch of shit when I was involved with Ring of Honor, but like he's an expert. That was way off base and wasn't true, but
that's the guy that I know that works for them.
Oh yeah, well Sean Radican, he's a big piece of shit too, and fuck him.
That was in case you were wondering what Jim Cornette feels about Bruce Mitchell. Now Amanda, who is John's Brodie Lee's wife, I gotta believe this is directed right at Mitchell. I'll do what Mitchell does and insinuate that is what this message and who this message is for. Amanda actually went to social media and said this, obviously hurt that would even be a discussion, that a journalist would be writing something like this. So Amanda, again, this is Brodie Lee's wife, said, and I quote, "Imagine being 17 and spending a night chatting with a mutual friend, then realizing that they were the one. You spend 7 years in an on-again, off-again relationship only to break up. Then you give it one last shot, one last try. You start therapy and really push each other to become better people. You date some more, navigate some crazy life curveballs. You find out you're having a baby boy, and the day is downsized. Then an injury in the sport they love, but you fight through that. You get married and have the most beautiful little boy. That day you find out they got their dream job, the job they never in a million years thought they'd get. You give up everything to watch them chase that dream. It pays off, and that world becomes everything. It gives you both everything you've ever dreamed of. You go on to build your dream life with one another and a perfect little boy, 2 crazy dogs, and 5 cats. They get an opportunity to really bet on themselves, and you watch them shine like never before. Life is so good. Then suddenly one day that person gets sick. Each day they get sicker and sicker. You know how much they value their privacy, so you ask those helping you to keep it quiet out of respect for them. You watch helplessly as they get worse and worse. Cove test after Cove test after Cove test come back negative. You almost pray for a positive one because it would be some kind of answer. You never get one. Suddenly, they're gone. You have to try to figure out how to imagine your future now. Then you read a quote-unquote journalist demanding transparency and insinuates you're hiding something, that it's some type of cover-up, something more sinister, that you aren't serving his memory best by not offering up information you're still trying to process, as if his death was a public health hazard. It wasn't. It was a tragedy. There's no cover-up. There's no conspiracy. There was just a series of unfortunate events that ended in your world being crushed. What kind of position does that put you in? When you're trying to grieve and people practically expect you to post medical records because since they were a public figure, they're entitled to all the knowledge of what happened. It wasn't COVID. There's no shame in dying from COVID, but it's not what it was. You have no answers, and you're just left there. Can you just fucking imagine that? End quote. From Brodie's wife, Amanda. Could you imagine having to write that? And by the way, I came across that through, I believe, Cash from FTR. I believe he did a retweet on that, and that came across one of my feeds. So that was FTR. So that goes to show you that it's not just people like Chris Hero. It's FTR. I mean, a lot of the talent is pissed off over this journalist, this Bruce Mitchell's words, in the timing of it and what he's insinuating. But could you imagine that the wife of a 41-year-old pro wrestler that had this happen to him, that has to actually issue a statement on that for privacy and just to process what the fuck is going on before she wants to release any information. And she, in the family of Brodie Lee, and AEW as a company, is being shamed into giving information because, Mitchell, that's what you're doing, bro. You can try to cover your own ass by saying that's not what you're doing, or give me an exact quote on where I insinuated this. Bro, I can give you the whole article that you wrote. But I couldn't imagine being put in that situation. Of course, let's not bullshit. Let's not beat around the bush. I'm sure that most of us are wondering what it actually was, but we have to deal with the fact that we may never know, and that's okay. That's not our right to know that. That's a personal thing as pro wrestling fans, or if you want to call yourself a journalist, a critic, a content creator, whatever you call yourself. We love pro wrestling, and these superstars are an extended family of sorts of ours. So yeah, we would like to know certain things, but you have to know when something is just private and let it be. Don't be that guy that thinks they deserve more information than they have. You don't. You're not their immediate family. You're not close to them. If they're willing to distribute that information, awesome. If not, deal with it. I just don't believe that's journalism. And today, journalism in pro wrestling is absolutely dead. When I read stories constantly of Vince McMahon is furious, you don't know what Vince McMahon is feeling because he's not going to let you know. Stop it. This is what journalists are now putting out there so they can get the clicks. Vince McMahon's furious at the ratings. Please, you don't know that. The dude's doing the same thing he's been doing all along. He's going to throw out a bunch of legends and hope that sticks. Because he won't create new superstars. Everybody's 50-50 booked into irrelevancy. He doesn't want anybody to be larger than the company. So more legends will come out. He'll pop a little rating and he'll be just fine and dandy. If he was truly frustrated, he would truly change things. He doesn't understand what is actually wrong. He probably doesn't believe there's an issue. This is where journalism is today. Anyway, I couldn't imagine having to put out a statement like that, but Amanda had to do such. And guys, this vid went a little bit longer than I even wanted it to, but it's a discussion piece. It's really it opens the discussion as to what is journalism and what is not anymore. When is it okay to ask certain questions, and when is it just weird, creepy, and dumb as fuck? This is one of those times where Bruce Mitchell put his foot in his mouth, he doubled down, and that's why everybody's kind of pissed off, and that's why even the wife of Brodie has to release a multi-paragraph response. Anyway. It's a discussion, guys. It sucks that any type of drama has to stem from a tragic passing like this. In the old term, rest in peace. Can we just let the dude do that, and can we let the family grieve? It just boggles my mind that this is journalism all of a sudden. I don't know. I'll keep repeating myself until I try to make myself understand, and that's probably not going to happen. So I'll end the video there and let you guys discuss amongst yourselves what the fuck is journalism these days in pro wrestling and what is not. And I guess you can extend that to the actual world, everything. What is journalism anymore? Everything seems to be an opinion piece. Nobody cares about facts anymore. Anyway, that's it. The Amplified Man. Much love and respect to all you guys. And until next time, check you later.